Pardon the interruption, but I'm Pablo Torre. And Tony, the Curiosity rover has spent 3,000 days on Mars.
I'm Tony Kornheiser. It wouldn't last a minute near Uranus. Now, the great benefit of Wilbon not being here is that the rest of us understand that that's funny, and Mike would just go, ah, ha, 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 ha. But it's funny.
Tony, it's more than funny. It's a bucket list item for me. I didn't think I'd ever get this opportunity to actually hear you say that to me. So thank you so much for making my Friday and possibly my 2021.
Just wonderful. Welcome to PTI, boys and girls. Wilbon is out, so we are lucky to be joined by my grandson, the host of the ESPN Daily Podcast, Mr. Pablo Torre. Yeah, cheers are always good, and we begin today with the highest profile game of the weekend, Tom Brady versus Drew Brees on Sunday, combined ages 85. It got to 85 today when Brees celebrated his 42nd birthday. One other combination of note is combined touchdown passes, 1,052, because Brady is number one all time and Brees is number two. Pablo, which quarterback do you think is going to come out on top?
I want to pick Drew Brees here, Tony, and I say that with full acknowledgement that Drew Brees is not only in his mid-40s by now, he's still recovering from, I think, about a dozen, broken ribs. I fully acknowledge also that he is, I think, second to last in the NFL in terms of air yards on his passes, all of which is to say that he can't really throw the ball at all. But I still want that guy because, number one, the system he plays in, they're humming again, right? Michael Thomas back from injury, all the limitations on Drew Brees' arm, Sean Payton, they've been dealing with that for years. None of that stuff is new. He's been banged up for years. That's not new. But the Tom Brady thing, right? Last week against the Washington football team, he got away with some stuff. He was supposed to be pressured by that defense. He was not. But when Tom Brady is pressured, he goes from 5th in QBR, Tom Brady-esque, to 31st, which is Nick Mullins-esque. So this Saints defense with Trey Hendrickson, who he had as many sacks as Aaron Donald, Tony, second most in the NFL. Against that guy, give me Drew Brees on the other side.
Okay, so you want to pick Brees, and you will pick Brees. Do I have that correct? Even with his physical limitations, you will pick him.
Even with all of
I want to pick Brady. I love Brady. It doesn't mean I don't love Brees. I love Brees both on and off the field. But Brady is a miracle to me. He's 43 years old, and he had, to this point, 42 touchdown passes so far this season. That, to me, is incredible. I believe that Chris Godwin will catch passes this week and not drop them like he did. And I find myself rooting for Brady. But if you ask me who I'm going to pick, I have to say to you that Brees is 5-2 all-time in the NFL against Brady. He's 2-0 this year against Brady. And in those games, and I want to get this correct,
please,
Brady has 2 touchdowns and 5 picks. You know, everyone says it's really hard to beat a team 3 times in a row, but it's not if you're the better team. I think Sean Payton is the better coach. I want Brady to win, but I think of Brady now, and this is before your time, obviously, as sort of like Joe Montana when he went to Kansas City. And he won some playoff games, but he never got back to the Super Bowl. And Brady's been great lately, Pablo, absolutely great. In his last 5 games, he's got 14 touchdowns and 1 pick. But I somehow think it's going to be Brees as well. I do. So,
Tony, I want to ask you about some of the other news we're getting right now because the teams that failed to make the playoffs have made some hires. The Falcons have hired Titans offensive coordinator Arthur Smith as their new head coach, and the Jets last night announced that they've hired 49ers defensive coordinator Robert Saleh as their replacement for Adam Gase. So it's been 5 straight losing seasons for the Jets now, including the last one at 2-14. So, Tony, should their long-suffering fans have reason for optimism?
So you live in New York. You're closer to this circumstance than I am, although all my life I rooted for the Jets when I was a kid, even before Joe Namath. I think the appropriate question for Robert Saleh is very simple. Do you have any players? Because I don't think you have any players. Okay? You're not sure who your quarterback is going to be. You don't have a single guy under contract who has ever been to the Pro Bowl. The Jets stink. I mean, there's just no getting around it. So I don't know. He's supposed to be a rah-rah guy, very enthusiastic. Players on the 49ers played for him. They love him. I'm for that. I'm happy for him. But you have to have players. You have to have players.
No, look, the big picture answer here is, of course, there should not be optimism for the New York Jets. Tony, that psychological scar tissue I sensed in your voice there indicates as much,
Yes.
right? It takes a lot more than a new fancy rah-rah hire to change a franchise that has been steeped in misery, and most recently steeped in misery because their ownership, right? The Johnson family, they don't know what they're doing, right? They are the guys who empowered Adam Gase. They are the guys now who are picking a replacement, which is promising, except that those guys at the top are still very much there. But the optimism and the case for it, here's where I can see it, Tony. Head coach in the NFL is such a political job, right? It's not merely having a good sense of the scheme and X's and O's. It's being the front-facing aspect of an organization. It is, in fact, getting the people in your building to really like and root for you. This guy seems to have that. And the deficit the Jets have entered this coming season with because of Gase, that means a very low bar has been set for him to have, at the very least, a nice, easy beginning to this.
So I'm going to talk as somebody who's old here and who followed the Jets pretty much my whole life, even before Joe Namath. Okay, they have one highlight ever, and it's Joe Namath doing this as they win the Super Bowl in 1969, which the last time I looked, is like more than 50 or is it 60 years ago, however long ago it is. That's what they've got. And I'll give you some names, and I'll tell you what they all have in common. Todd Bowles, Rex Ryan, Eric Mangini, Al Groh, Herm Edwards. What they have in common is they could have no sustained excellence with the Jets. The Jets haven't been in the Super Bowl in much longer than you're alive. Much longer than you're alive. So to say that Salah can turn that around, good luck. Via con Dios, I hope you can. I don't think so. Chris Haynes of Yahoo is reporting that the reason the Rockets traded James Harden to the Nets instead of trading him to the 76ers is because Houston owner Tillman Fertitta refused to deal with 76ers GM Daryl Morey, who until a few months ago held that same title with the Rockets and worked for Fertitta. That is really holding a grudge. Pablo, did Tillman Fertitta help or hurt himself?
Hurt himself, Tony. And I notice you are sitting in front of, books that you've done in the past, like you have. I just want to point out, Tillman Fertitta wrote a book too. It is called Shut Up and Listen! His face glowering out at the world. That's the guy who decided to hold this grudge against his own best interests because he did not want to reward Daryl Morey, his former employee, from stealing, number one, James Harden, and number two, his own pride. Ben Simmons is the key to any hypothetical win when James Harden says, I want out. Ben Simmons, Tony, look, I love him more than anybody else on this network, but Ben Simmons is an all-NBA player, a franchise cornerstone guy. If you had the chance to get him, and you didn't, which, by the way, I was under the understanding that he would not have traded for Ben Simmons simply because of this grudge as of November. The fact that he didn't is irresponsible, honestly.
So what I'll get to is how much I love this story, because I like a guy who will hold a grudge. I like a guy who will cut off his nose to spite his own face. But let's get to Ben Simmons, because what is true here, there is reporting that Ben Simmons was not offered for trade, and there is reporting that Ben Simmons was offered for trade. If indeed Ben Simmons was offered, and you did not take him, you are hurting yourself, not helping yourself, because he's better than Oladipo. He's better than anything that came from the Nets. But he's a player who could be indeed a great player. So if Tillman Fertitta did that, that's just crazy, because you're hurting yourself. What the Nets gave you, they gave you thin air. They gave you draft picks. They may be great, but they may not be great. Ben Simmons goes out there, and he's a player worth having. But again, I have to say, Fertitta must hate Morey beyond comprehension. To do this, to actually tie his own hands behind his own back.
Yes, he hated that Daryl Morey said, I got to go step away to spend time with my family, and then took a gap week and then reemerged with another team saying, by the way, I want your best player. He hated that, absolutely.
So I will say this, regardless of how the trade came about, we're going to be talking about this trade for a long time. We're going to look at Houston to see if they're conceivably as good or better without Harden because Harden didn't want to play and ruin the chemistry on that particular team. We're going to look at the chemistry of the Nets with Harden and Durant and if Kyrie Irving ever plays. This is the story of the NBA season this year.
Absolutely.
And to not make that trade out of spite, while I admire it, is nuts. Let's take a break. Coming up, Baker Mayfield and Patrick Mahomes rolled up the numbers. Hotline. If you're calling us, you must be really bored. Hark, I sense the first caller.
Hi, guys. This is Claire. I want to know if you see Baker Mayfield and Patrick Mahomes having a shootout like they had in college.
So let me go through what happened in college, because I got all the statistics right here.
Please.
It was completely incredible. Baker Mayfield was at Oklahoma, and Patrick Mahomes was at Texas Tech. The final score of the game was 66-59 Oklahoma. Mahomes threw for 734 yards and 5 touchdowns. Mayfield threw for 545 yards and 7 touchdowns. That's a whole season for Cam Newton at New England. That's the whole season. That's what he's got.
Yes.
So as I look at this game right now, what's most interesting to me is Baker Mayfield is getting 10 points. That's an interesting bet for me because, Cleveland is pretty good offensively. Like, I like Kansas City, but I also like the higher scoring. Cleveland this year, Pablo, has gone 40-plus 4 different times. That's a lot. And Kansas City is not afraid of giving up points because they know they can score anytime they want to score. So for me, as I look at it, I don't think it's going to be anything like college, but Kansas City in a big number has an appeal to me. And it's Andy Reid after a bye week. And when Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City are after a bye week, they average 38 points a game.
Yeah, Tony, we're not going to get Texas Tech, Oklahoma in that way. Although the definition of a good game in the NFL basically does mean, as you alluded to, bad defense. That's really what it means. And the good news in this particular matchup is that these are the 2 worst defenses left in the playoffs. When you get inside the 20 against the Kansas City Chiefs, Tony, as much as they are the Super Bowl favorites, the defending champions, you score, I believe, 77% of the time. They can be scored upon. The issue, of course, is that Patrick Mahomes doesn't need any help, let alone a bye week to drop 50 on anybody. He does that rolling out of bed in the morning.
That's right. The Kansas City has failed to cover 7 of their last 8 games because they just win. It doesn't matter, but it makes the betting intriguing. What's next?
Hi, fellas. This is Matt. Do you see Gonzaga going unbeaten this year?
Through the tournament? Is that question through the tournament? Because I don't. Not through the entire tournament. The last time that happened was Indiana in 1976. It's a long time ago. Not as long as Namath doing this, but a long time ago. And Vegas couldn't do it. Kentucky couldn't do it. Can they get into the tournament undefeated? Sure, because they don't play in a tough conference. The statistic that's intriguing is since 2014, they're 95-0 in conference against everybody who's not named BYU and St. Mary's, and they're 119-8 against everybody. They're very good, Pablo. They have beaten West Virginia, they have beaten Kansas, they have beaten Iowa.
Yes.
But when you get to the tournament, you are likely going to have to play 5 good teams in a row to win it. And this, they don't have any more meaningful good games. So I would bet against them going all the way through.
Yeah, it's insane to be confident about an undefeated season in college basketball in general. With Gonzaga, though, I will say, Mark Few, their head coach, this is how he kind of draws it up, right? You start off with the big names early in the schedule, you downshift into the conference that you dominate year after year, and you kind of take it easy. They get St. Mary's this weekend, which should be the real test of whether they can survive the marshmallows they sort of have scheduled for that back end of the conference. But look, Ken Pomeroy, who is the nerd god that I listen to, Tony, when it comes to college basketball stats, he says it's about 52% undefeated chances for Gonzaga. And look, if it's going to happen in any season, maybe it's this one where it's all this chaos and they're playing fewer games. But it's college basketball. It's designed to be chaotic. By no means do I have any confidence beyond 51, 52%.
Gonzaga is a very, very good team. Correct me if I'm wrong. They have 0 national championships. We're nearly out of premonitions, but coming up, I sense us discussing DJ LeMayeu's reported return to the Bronx.
And Russell Wilson's thoughts on...
New head coach, Robert Saleh. Mr. Green, the Post called him, the all-purpose cleaner for this franchise. See why? The right hire for NY, the right destination for Saleh.
I think it's a great hire for them, brings a little star power. We've all seen all the close-ups on the sidelines, and it's not just the fact that he's been a defensive coordinator for the past 5 years. He's been a coach in the league for 16 total. That's the kind of credibility I think this locker room and this franchise needs.
Woody Page?
I watched him closely 2 years ago because Mike Shanahan told me when the 49ers practiced against the Broncos that he was going to be a head coach in the league soon. I'd never heard of him. And yes, the job he's done defensively, the personality he has, it's over the top like the coach in Seattle. I think he's going to be great for New York and that media market and the fans.
It's a good hire. I like the fact that the Jets didn't focus on today's specific issue. What do you do about Sam Darnold in the offense? And they went bigger picture, which is what you should do with a head coach who hopefully is going to last 5, 6, 7, 8 years and have a lot of other things to deal with.
Everybody's buying the hire. Eric Bieniemy, a name that we've wanted to see what his offense could do as a head coach. That's not the hire here. Sarah Spain, what do you think of Saleh in New York?
Well, yeah, to Tim's point, they already had a quarterback guru in Adam Gase, so you can only go down after you got him in there. So you focus on the defense instead. One other question. I agree with everybody else. Leadership, personality, energy, everything. This is the right hire to change the culture there. You asked if it was a good move for him. It'll be interesting to see if there was a better opportunity, because he was doing interviews everywhere, to go somewhere that has a lot more talent, because that's what the Jets team is missing in terms of personnel.
I say again, is Eric Bieniemy not going to be hired in this offseason here for NFL coaches?
Houston's coming this way.
Where's this way? Clinton, what are you talking about? The Chargers? Okay, we'll move on.
Bolts, baby. Coming back to the
number one defense versus number one offense. That's what Rams-Packers is this weekend. I got a question. Does anybody know when a number one offense plays a number one defense, what the breakdown is in the post? Tim Callis, you're nodding. Who's got the advantage, offense or defense?
Defense wins, and it's by a lot. I think it's like 5 or 6 to 1.
It's 3-1 in the last 20 years, the defense over the offense. So go ahead, Tim. Who do you favor in this matchup?
Having said that, I like the offense of the Packers. I don't like and I don't like the Rams going up to Green Bay and winning there. And I don't like Goff's thumb throwing, pushing shot puts out there to his receivers. So I got to go with
Sarah Spain.
Yeah, that defense might be doing good things for the Rams, but that offense is giving points to the other team. 25 turnovers, 16 of those from Goff himself, and that's not even counting with that injured hand where he's limited. So to me, the offensive firepower of the Packers is too much.
Glenn Yates?
The team thing is one thing, but when an MVP goes up against the Defensive Player of the Year and they both won it twice, the MVP wins more. And also, Jared Goff does not throw touchdowns when the starting game kickoff temperature is freezing. 0-5.
Okay, so you've got Aaron Rodgers, the former MVP, over Aaron Donald, the Defensive Player of the Year. Woody Page, how about you?
I'm going and love me some Aaron Rodgers and Adams. They complete 77% of their attempts. Ramsey stops all pro receivers, 39% of the team. What about that other 40%? That's going to mean the difference.
Did anybody follow the numbers there? The statistical soup, Woody Page?
No.
Oh, Woody, that's
I think 70 minutes.
Fortunate turn of events. Browns, Kansas City. Sammy Watkins doesn't think it'll be a test. He may have forgotten the last 2 months for Kansas City. Been one possession games. He's also not even playing this week. There's house money, and then there's what the Browns are playing with after exercise.